Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our session today on lead gen automation and innovation. I'm Warren Pickett, the content director for LeadsCon, and we're delighted to have you with us. This is a panel discussion that we had hoped to bring you in Las Vegas 6 months ago, and I'm very pleased that we're able to bring it to you now. There's obviously a lot happening technologically around lead generation, and Dolead is leading the charge here by sharing kind of a landscape that's going to walk you through the different portions and parts of the lead gen industry. So I'm very pleased today to have Arthur Saint-Père of Dolead kind of leading the charge. We have Vishwas Aurora from Kohler, so a great brand in the space. We have Bas Offers from px.com, Geoff from Microsoft Advertising, and Matthew Black from MAV. So gentlemen, it's great to have all of you. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us and sharing your insights. And Arthur, I'm going to turn things over to you and let you take it from here.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Warren, for that kind introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm very happy to share with you what we've learned about AI and automation over the past 10 years and how this is becoming the next big thing for online lead generation. My goal today is to make sure everyone gets to grasp what is the main pain point when trying to optimize lead generation campaigns, and how AI could be your next big move. So as Warren explained, today's session will be split into two parts. First, I will be introducing AI and automation in the lead generation industry, and I'll be unveiling the first attempt to sort of map out the whole industry into one comprehensive landscape. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then, so 4 panel experts will join me on this virtual stage to share their comments, insights, their views, and probably answer your questions. If you have some questions, please feel free to use the chat box or the Q&A box, and I will take care of it, after the session. And also, if you want to find, the slides, you can download the slides at any moment, clicking on the handouts button. You'll find online. All right, let's do this then. I'd like to start with a sort of, personal comments on lead generation and the way lead generation experts try to deal with their day-to-day professional life. What is the, what does this man named Andrzej Bargiel, who is a professional skier, a professional mountain climber, what does this guy, who actually last year did the first ever ski descent of the K2 mountain, in Himalaya? It's one of the most dangerous mountains on earth, and who was able to ski descent it, which is almost insane. What do you think this professional has in common with you guys? Lead generation specialists attending LeadsCon 2020. I know this is virtual this year, but what do you think that person has in common with you guys? The answer is going to be pretty straightforward. I believe that you're both packing experts. And well, maybe you don't get it right now, but I promise you will later on with the presentation. I will make sure you get to understand this. Let me introduce myself for a second. My name is Arthur Saint-Père, or Arthur Saint-Père in French, because I'm French. I'm the CEO and founder of Dolead, and here is my email if you want to shoot me an email at any time, arthur@dolead.com. This is what I will cover today. We will first start with some sort of a lead generation industry overview, and then discuss how lead generation has evolved over the ages, and why AI is now starting to be the next big move for that industry, and creating a new era for all of the companies working there. To understand this, I'm gonna explain you with more details what exactly is AI, artificial intelligence, from a pure math standpoint. And then I will be unveiling the lead generation landscape that we've been working on for the past 18 months. Once we've done that, we'll try to assess how and where AI can be found inside this landscape. 500 logos to deep dive in, so there's a lot to cover. And I will finalize this presentation with a few key takeaways before starting the roundtable and the questions with our guest speakers. So first, the US lead generation industry has hardly been covered by traditional marketing companies that like Forrester or Gartner, and it's very hard to find online resources to try to understand how big that lead generation industry is, and what type of companies are trying to help final and advertisers. I found these two reports by Dolead. Dolead is an M&A firm based in Chicago. They released their first report back in February 2019, and that report is still available for free on their website. It's a great market research. It's pretty big. So you're going to learn a lot about the industry, and just so happened that they updated their report in September, so with even more precise and accurate data. I'm going to share with you a few key insights from these reports right now. One is that the market grew 18% year over year in 2019. Two, so it's growing very fast. Two, that digital is growing faster than traditional direct mail, and actually digital now stands for 62% of that $26 billion industry size. So it's getting bigger and bigger. Online lead generation is getting bigger and bigger. And also what I've learned and what I've found really fascinating reading that report is that it is a highly fragmented industry with over 22,000 what they call agencies, we could say companies, and a highly fragmented industry being disrupted by newcomers like Dolead that leverage technology at scale and that leverage automation and AI. So if we try to take a step back and look at lead generation as a whole, I would divide the lead generation industry story into 4 different parts. Obviously, when internet was invented, when it started back in 1993, lead generation was at the core of it because it was very easy to publish a website, put your phone number on it, and start receiving some calls and start receiving some brick and mortar visits from online users. So lead generation has always been part of the internet bigger story. So after 2000, what happened is that some companies started to create tools to help lead generation companies. And I guess the first tool you started to use was email SaaS products to start your emailing strategy. That was one of the very first tools that were created at that time. And then moving forward to the next decade, we're just finalizing a decade where a lot of tools were aimed at automating things to help you save time and be more productive and be more successful with your lead generation efforts. And at Dolead, we strongly believe that 2020 and beyond will be a new era, an era where AI, artificial intelligence, is gonna be used by everyone. It's gonna be everywhere in every product for every brand. So let me just describe what is AI. Artificial intelligence, as described by Professor John McCarthy, which is the father of AI, he's with Stanford University, is the science and engineering of making intelligent machines that can actually make decisions on behalf of real humans. I love that chart here. I love that slide because it gives you a very clear understanding on how complex AI is. AI is not just about machine learning. It's not just about predictive analytics, not just about speech to text or robotics or whatever. AI is a combination of different math and algorithmic bricks that you have to combine all together to create a product, to create a very strong marketing strategy as for the lead generation industry. This is what is AI. And as far as lead generation, AI is a very powerful tool, is very useful to help you solve the backpack problem. And this is when we get back to Andrzej Bargiel and the professional mountain climber trying to solve the backpack problem. This is a very classic problem that you will find in the math literature. You can go online, check the Wikipedia page. Actually, it's named knapsack problem, not backpack problem. That's the same thing, the same idea. And you're probably wondering why I'm mentioning this today. It's just because this is exactly what your boss is expecting you to do on a daily or a monthly basis. Your target, your role as a professional lead generation strategist is to maximize sales volume with your marketing budget, whether it's through your weekly marketing budget, monthly marketing budget, yearly marketing budget. You need to maximize the volume of sales with that budget. So from a pure math perspective, this means that you have to choose which brick, a brick being a lead or a lead source, you want to put in your backpack first. And each brick has a weight. The weight is the cost, so a cost per lead or a customer acquisition cost or a cost per sales. So each brick has a weight, a cost, and a value, a probability to become a sale. And of course, the cost and the value will be quite volatile in our market, which doesn't make solving that problem very easy. So this is it. Which brick do you want to put first in your backpack? Which brick do you want to put second, third, up to the point where you don't have any budget anymore? And I guess that at this point of the presentation, you might think that you probably don't want to use a very high-level, algorithmic approach to solve that problem. And again, this is all online on the Wikipedia page. It's been, studied by lots of math experts worldwide. And I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, I don't have a PhD in computer science. Well, I don't have one. So do I really need that kind of PhD to be able to maximize, to optimize my marketing budget? I'm already doing a great job. I'm sure Vish and Bas are going to comment on this later on, because this is part of what you do on a daily basis. And I guess that most of you would answer that you're currently using both common sense and an Excel spreadsheet or a Google spreadsheet to do this. In the lead generation industry, this is called lead source arbitrage. And this is the way it works. At the end of the month, you take all your lead sources. So here, from lead source number 1 to lead source number 26 in that example. Then you add all the data you gathered throughout the month for these sources: the number of leads, the number of sales, the sales rate, the cost per sales, the total cost, the total marketing budget you put into that specific source, and the cost per lead or the price per lead. These are the main drivers for you to make your decisions. Then what you would do is you would sort that Excel using the cost per sales, sorting the different lines from the best performing sources. In that case, the source number 1 has a 41 cost per sales, to the worst performing source. Source number 25 has a 279 cost per sales. And then you will start thinking, what do I want to do for the upcoming month? And you would probably split your decisions into 3 parts. 1, I need to get more lead volume from the green sources. The green sources are good performing, but I'm not buying and I'm not getting a lot of leads from these sources. So I'm going to pick up the phone, I'm going to call lead source number 1, I'm going to say, hey, I bought 63 leads from you guys last month. How can I get more from you? 2, you're going to have to be very nice with the orange sources, because the orange sources stand for, in that case, more than 40% of the total sales you made last month. So you want to make sure you secure these lines. You want to make sure you have a very strong partnership with these sources. You want to make sure you share data with them to keep optimizing their campaigns. And then you get the red lines, the red sources. And then you're going to think, what should I do? Should I share more data with them? Should I decrease the price per lead? Should I limit the budget allocated to them, etc., etc. So you can do this on a manual basis with Common Sense and Excel. You can also do this with some tools like PX, like Leadspedia, like Cake, that can help you, automate that process and get better insights in real life, which is actually excellent. But this is automation. This is not AI. And the problem with that automation, the problem with that manual way of dealing with things, that in real life, it is very hard to make good decisions. And it's very hard because you're dealing with very small data samples. You're probably dealing with long sales cycles, up to 2 years for EDU brands. We're all dealing with online to offline marketing funnels. So it's very easy to lose data and to log bad data. And even from a pure math standpoint, even with sample with no more distribution, which means that the sample looks perfect to make a decision, it's very easy to misinterpret the data and to think that we have a clear signal when in fact that's just a noise. And I'm sure that you try to scale campaigns that were very good performing for the past few months. You try to scale them and then everything changes and the quality goes down. It happens to all of us. So lead generation tends to be very unpredictable and very volatile. Now, that's the pain. That's the pain point. You know that out there on the market, there is a lot of companies trying to help you solve that problem and trying to help you work on that pain point. So we decided 18 months ago to try to map out the markets and then try to deep dive into the market to understand which company is doing what and what could be leveraged. And I'm very, very proud and very happy to share this with you today. Before unveiling the DoleadScape 500, just a few comments on our methodology. One, we've screened over 1,000 companies, mostly in North America and Western Europe. Dolead is based both in Europe with a main office in Paris and in the US with a headquarters in Boston, Mass. And then we decided to exclude all companies with a LinkedIn page totaling fewer than 15 employees, just to have a 500 logos on one slide, which is a lot, and not 1,000 logos. I'm sure that what we've done is not perfect. So any feedback, any comment, welcome. Please just shoot us an email to doleadscape@dolead.com. And we're going to be working on that landscape on a yearly basis, just to iterate and make it better and better. Here's the way it works. On the left side of that slide, you see the different channels, like Microsoft Bing Ads, and I'm very glad, Geoff, you could make it today to discuss how AI is involved with the Bing Ads strategy. So all the different channels, all the different paid channels that you could try to leverage to buy clicks and transform them into leads and sales. On the right-hand side of the slide, you see the end advertisers, like Kohler, all the advertisers that rely on lead generation to generate sales. And right in the middle is what we think is the lead generation landscape. Companies that are focused in delivering the value right in between channels and advertisers. So we decided to split that landscape in 4 parts. The first part is, following a lead funnel is the traffic generation, which is basically generating a click is the start of the consumer journey online. So traffic generation, then moving forward, lead capture, converting the click into a lead, then lead processing, and then sales closing. And here it is. This is the DoleadScape 500. It's been updated in September, so just a few days ago. And as you can see, there are a lot of logos on that chart. I'm not gonna detail and comment the DoleadScape too much in deep right now. Just want to share with you two key insights. One, when trying to find AI inside this landscape, we can see that there are companies that are tech-enabled services, companies that are not pure SaaS companies, SaaS products. They are tech-enabled services. They leverage technology to deliver the service for the end customer. And here is where they are. They are located in the top right-hand corner of that slide. And then, of course, there is a lot of SaaS tools that you could leverage on the market. And here's where they are located. And again, most of the lead processing companies are SaaS tools because it's for obvious reasons. This is what the market is requesting right now. But you also find some SaaS tools, with the sales closing part of the chart, like conversation intelligence and CRM and dialers too. The rest of the chart, the rest of that landscape is made of agencies, growth hacking agencies, lead generation agencies, and traditional agencies, and also call centers companies. All right, and time is flying, so I need to rush now to finalize this presentation. When trying to find AI inside this landscape, just keep a few things in your mind. One, for the lead generation companies like Bing, for example, are both channels and tools that are embedded inside their product. For example, with Google, with Bing, with Facebook, you have campaign optimizers. They have machine learning, and they can help you optimize your budget. This is obvious. This is something that has been well covered by the market. Two, lead capture. Companies like A/B Tasty, which is a company that can help you build landing pages and A/B test them at scale, can help you build one-to-one marketing strategies with dynamic context, landing page adapting to the user. Lead processing, a lot to say about these companies. They can help you with the lead scoring, the lead nurturing, the lead enrichment, the lead processing in general. So a lot can be automated there, and a lot can be done with AI too. And then sales closing, of course, you cannot replace the end sales by a machine, at least not now, but you can empower the end salesperson through predictive dialers, chatbots, and sales rate boosters. All right, key takeaways. I hope that you will talk to your CTO, your Chief Technology Officer, after that presentation. I hope that you will discuss with him how you could build a centralized database. We call it a data lake, with Dolead, just to be able to have the data and then try to apply AI strategies on top of that data. Then work on your current marketing stack, trying to add and leverage AI-driven tools or AI-driven partners. I'm always a big fan of being transparent and share data. The more data you share with your partners, the best they're gonna be able to help you get the best out of your marketing budget, especially mid-funnel KPIs, and then learn from your customers. Especially right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're going to see if there is a second wave coming or not. There is a second wave coming in Europe and in France especially. And we're also going to have the election 3rd of November. So that might also impact the way consumers behave, the way consumers buy or don't buy the product or the services you are offering. Thank you very much for listening to me. So I guess we're going to move to the second part of the session right now with Bas, Matthew, Geoffrey, and Vishwas. And if this is okay with everyone, I'm going to start with my first question, which is for Geoffrey. So, Geoffrey, when we buy reach, you're with Microsoft. So when we buy reach, we usually look at the scale of a channel or publisher. We want to work with very highly scalable channels. But we also look at the number of guaranteed impressions. From your perspective at Microsoft, how can AI help identify the mix of media properties
a brand could buy?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I think the question there is interesting because we use the term mix, and as lead generation specialists, we're still looking for, what's the best mix in terms of when we're buying for reach, because we're probably looking at a number of different platforms where we want to serve up our advertising or some form of call to action that gets basically quality leads into that pipeline. If we think about reach, and to use the old analogy, we're at the top of the funnel. We're trying to basically find who the candidates are who basically the people are that we're trying to sell to, and get them into the funnel to see if they're of quality mix. And AI could play an interesting role in terms of figuring out, okay, what is that perfect media mix? That's still pretty much a human endeavor. And what I mean by that is it's a lot of manual research on, okay, let's say you have 10,000 euros to do on a campaign. Where are you going to put those 10,000 euros? You might just say, all right, let's put them toward this one platform and not spread things thin. But you also might want to figure out, hey, is that working in terms of generating, the reach that you want? And this is where I think, AI will play a huge role in terms of figuring out, what is that perfect media mix for you? Is it getting the guaranteed impressions by a specific date? If it's not, do we have programmatic systems to shift that spend? A lot of that, we talk about, these things as being able to happen. Those systems really don't exist just yet. Still a lot of, still a lot of media buying that you're going in, you're turning off, you're turning on systems. There's probably a lot of waste there. Yeah. So I think that's where AI is going to play a huge role moving forward.
All right. Thank you for sharing this with us. Matthew, so since your company, Mav, uses, innovative chatbots to interact with leads, would you be able to tell us how conversational AI improves the overall consumer experience?
Yeah, sure. First off, thanks for having me. This is super cool. Having a blast so far. Yeah, as far as how it improves the CX experience, I think it really comes down to three things. Conversational AI enables you to be timely, it enables you to be personalized, and it enables you to be contextually aware. And I guess what I mean by this is, first, so if we break down timely and what that means, it's always on, always available, right? So you don't have to worry about any of this speed to lead crap. You don't have to worry about any of this cat and mouse phone tag that you typically would play on the phone side. It's always on, it's always available. And I guess by enabling that, what you're doing is you're really putting the buying process in the hands of the consumer versus having them subscribe to your selling process, right? Secondly, it's personalized. So it's always aware of who that customer is. It's always aware of the customer's details. So who they are, where they live, and most importantly, what they're looking for, right? And you'd be surprised how a lot of that gets lost, right? Especially when you're talking about long buying cycles that can span over the course of weeks or months for financial services, right? And then finally, and I think this is actually one of the most important reasons, is it's contextually aware. And what I mean by that is not only is it aware of the customer and the customer's needs, it's also aware of external factors, right? So think of like market conditions. And I use this example of like mortgage, right? Which went through this crazy kind of up and down, pre-COVID, post-COVID. So for example, let's say a customer goes through experience, doesn't necessarily qualify for a mortgage in the heat of COVID, right? But later something changes in the market conditions where they now qualify or they now become, a warmer lead to you. Conversational AI makes a great candidate during that duration to educate, nurture, and then again, timely re-engage them when an offer becomes more qualified. And the whole point is this could span over days, weeks, or months, but because it's all automated, you shouldn't care, right? And ideally, you could have thousands and thousands and thousands of these conversations all at once.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Sure.
Bas, can you tell us more about the workflow of the lead processing and how this can be automated?
First of all, Arthur, thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very passionate about this topic myself, so I'm stoked to be in this group with all these people and share some experiences from the exercise. First of all, I would like to say that I think as an industry, we're not doing a very good job on AI yet. If you look at what happened in the whole media buying industry in the last 10 years, maybe even 20 years, we refer to it as the programmatic revolution. If you see how mobile ads are being purchased today, how search is moving into that, and obviously Geoff referred to that already in terms of referring to programmatic. I think we're a pretty far way off still within the customer acquisition space that we're all serving here. And I think we're passionate about solving that, obviously, but I think all the people on this panel are. So I'm happy to have some time to address this all together, because automation, that's where it starts. And you showed the little graph, Arthur, where it showed 2010 to 2020 is all about automation. I think actually a lot of companies are still stuck with their automation. So before we can move to AI, automation is a critical part to be solved on that side in order to move to programmatic and full artificial intelligence and automate the whole process. We at BX, we believe that to move into fully programmatic in the lead distribution side channel that you so beautifully showed in the Dolead landscape, there's 4 things that can be focused on. One is automated integrations. We see a lot of companies that try to make one-on-one relationships and indeed rank stack order them from their Excel sheet and manage it that particular way. There are smarter ways today to actually manage your sources, but also manage all these beautiful verifications and appending services that are out there. What's happening with doing it on a one-on-one basis is that we see a lot of companies, in fact, 2/3 of the companies in the space that cannot manage more than 10 sources today, which is pretty interesting. 10 sources is really small, and it's pretty hard to hedge your bets only on 10 sources. The second important aspect for full automation is in order to be able to do a real end-to-end attribution. And a lot of companies are talking about it, but it's actually much harder to put that into effect. And end-to-end attribution means that you don't only know what happens on the leads within your call center, but you know exactly what happened all the way in the front end, so you can tie those together. And not only have the insights to tie them together, but also actually make actions to be smarter on that. And if you can make those actions, you can automate those actions. The third one in terms of distribution, and a pretty important point, and probably a lot of people know that we advocate a lot about this, is dynamic pricing. In order to move away from your rank stacking and not automated way, moving to a model of dynamic pricing is key in order to get to a full programmatic way of handling lead distribution. And today, still 82% of companies in the space are not hitting their ROI goals. That's a crazy statistic. 82% are not hitting their ROI goals. And the solution is pretty easy, is moving towards dynamic pricing so you actually can course correct and automate that whole process. Implementing it is harder when you actually not have a full end-to-end attribution model in place and all the tools in order to do that. Last one, what we see on the distribution side is that it's key in order to be super agile on automating real-time caps and budgets. Often advertisers are still setting monthly budgets that they cannot fulfill because they're not planning very smartly on that. And in order to solve for that, it can be automated, and it can be actually done through a platform these days beautifully. So it's interesting because a lot of companies that we deal with in the space still think that a lot of these things can actually be done by human intervention and continue to hire these processes to, as you mentioned, cherry pick or stop certain sources, but that's not scalable, and it's extremely volatile that way. So moving towards full automation is the key to take that volatility away and to move to the next step of programmatic.
Thank you, Bas, for sharing this with us. Vish, according to your experience at Kohler, how could AI and automation help lead buyers and advertisers as a whole help secure the highest quality prospects that are qualified at various levels? For example, propensity to convert and ability to afford the product or services.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. No, I appreciate this discussion. Very, very intriguing discussion going on. All great comments made. I would say automation and AI definitely have so much role to play. And I totally agree with you, Bas. I think the industry is still going in that direction when AI and automation is still to be implemented in a pretty big way. I know it's kind of going in that direction, but there's a lot to be done. There's really a lot to be done. We at Kohler, being one of the biggest global brands in bathroom and shower remodeling, bathroom products, kitchen products. We use a lot of. We believe in the power of data. We believe in the power of data. We believe in the basics of marketing 101. I want to say that in order to, again, I manage the from my standpoint, I manage the marketing, lead generation, and analytics for our direct to dealer, one of the newest channels that Kohler launched a few years back, which of course helped Kohler get into. So we believe in the power of data a lot. We have a lot of history of our data. I think Arthur, you spoke about finding trafficking the right leads, finding the right traffic. I think one of the most important things that we focus a lot is finding who your consumer is. I think the most important thing is you need to understand who your ideal customer is, who your ideal consumer is. Like for us, if let's just say for our walk-in bath products, for our shower remodeling products, if we think Susan is the right customer, who is Susan is, what does Susan think? Where does Susan live? How much money does Susan make? Or who is Jeffrey? What are the things that interest Susan? What are the various media interests? What are the things that she consumes as far as media? Where does she spend her time in? So we use automation. I think automation can really be a pretty solid tool to find your ideal customer, find your ideal consumer. Can I totally, dial into that your ideal customer, and then also spend your time, energy, and resources in various media strategies that can find your best customer. So we use that a lot, and then in the end, we also use a lot of audience segmentation that can help us understand what are the various segments. I mean the thing is that in today's age you cannot have one size fits all kind of approach. You need to approach your audience in a very specialized manner. So we use again the automation can help you really customize your messaging. Our automation should be used to super personalize your overall tactics. It's if a certain channel works with a certain audience, we should use that channel. I mean, SMS, text, email, chat, all that. So really, it's all about finding the right customer and then using the right channel and the right message to deliver that message to the customer. I think that's where automation and that's the area where Kohler and our I would say automation and AI. Again, AI takes it to the next level. I won't say I'm an expert expert of AI by any means. But again, I think automation, if we can really do that and kind of find those various things that can help us find the right consumer and then qualify them at various levels. I think, so like, I mean, what are the various financial attributions, we have behind the customer? How's the credit profile of a customer? I mean, things, can they really afford the product? So those are the things that can really, and again, use the power of data. We use a lot of modeling, we use a lot of regression tools and modeling again, to really, go back in the history and find what really maps well with, what's working and when kind of what's not working. So I would say, kind of taking that data-driven approach more towards, kind of automated style and using sophisticated technologies, I want to say, to kind of find and zero down to your ideal consumer, and then keep on using various channels and tactics and approaches to find them and kind of keep them warm. That would be that's the way we approach lead generation as far as automation and those things go. So yeah.
Keep on keeping. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Vish.
Yep.
Matthew, let's get back to you for a second. In your experience, what is one of the most overlooked aspects of using conversational AI for lead generation?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. So this is actually one of my favorite questions. And it's specifically as it relates to conversational AI, or I like to also call it front office automation as it relates to your graph. It's leveraging automation and AI plus the messaging channels themselves. And I feel like when conversational AI / chatbots really hit the market in 2016, we forgot about the benefits of the messaging channel itself. And what I mean by this is platforms like SMS, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, these are persistently open channels. I can text you, right now at 8 something in the morning. You don't have to get back to me. You could get back to me, this evening. You could get back to me tomorrow. You could get back to me in a month from now. And that sort of one-to-one communication that we're used to as humans, automation can also make use of that. So time and time again, we'll run automated conversational AI playbooks that will span across months, because sometimes people just need months, right? And the messaging channel itself is so uniquely positioned for us to take advantage of that. And that's always the first thing I try to get everyone to understand. And then we can understand how we can layer on automation and AI in tandem with that messaging channel.
Yeah, you're right. And what I actually love with these channels is that the reply rate is very high, always very high. You can always, skip an email, you can go to your spam box, but, a text or a messenger message, you're going to see it, and hopefully you're going to reply to it.
Very easy to respond to, too.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Geoffrey, once you've picked a channel to purchase media, what are some ways AI will help to to deliver more messages, to increase or decrease reach based on context, and also what do you recommend to increase reach relevance and decrease basically reach waste?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we're starting to see more of is a combination of, some of these systems where, let's say you're in the market for searching for a particular product. How are those signals then used in delivering native advertising that, if we think about the sort of how retargeting works in a classic sense, you may have already bought something, but you're still being followed around the web by many of these ads. What I think some AI will play into more of is if you're actually continuing to search for something, it knows that it has those signals for it. And therefore you're only being delivered those ads in sort of a display or a native context that's still relevant to you. And you may read particular articles, and you might find out a little bit more information that exists there. So I think what we see is the runway in the next couple of years of basically how all of these different systems converge into a better user experience on the web. If you think about it, we may use different channels for finding information, then we're reading information, then we're doing other things. I think you're going to see more of those platforms probably converge in a lot of ways on the back end that basically provides a better customer experience. And what we've actually seen is on the retail side, they're pretty much leading that way. Many companies now are really saying, okay, hey, we're selling through third parties, but we want to really sell direct through our digital storefront because it knows the experience that you have. I'll just use an example of like Nike or Adidas. If I go to adidas.com or nike.com, it already knows maybe what I've ordered based on that history. It can give me a better customer experience. That helps, though, I think, on the side of when you actually are buying for reach. Basically, you can build these systems or this infrastructure that makes it much more friendly than really what exists right now on the web when we're out there buying for audiences.
Yeah, filling the gap between the online experience and the offline experience that you would have in the store. Yeah, and I'd like also to mention that Microsoft has a very strong AI named Cortana, and Microsoft bought LinkedIn a few years ago. And I expect from you guys to come up with a great combination of these three products: the Bing Ads platform, Cortana on top of it, and the LinkedIn Insights, because especially for B2B marketing campaigns, I'm pretty sure that we're going to be able to do extraordinary things in the upcoming years.
That's been the main ask. I think that's what we're trying to work toward in terms of mapping a good experience there.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Let's get back to you, Bas. We know that PX secures leads for clients, but how do you make sure that a brand has all the necessary lead information?
Yeah, good question, Arthur, because actually when you think about the beautiful DoleadScape that you guys have worked on and mapped out all the companies, I think there's one thing to add to it, where there's so many intermediaries still in our space.
Yeah.
So many intermediaries that actually didn't make it to the DoleadScape that are brokering deals. And I love the example of Geoff about what happened to retail, where retail wants to reach the consumer, or the brands want to reach consumers directly today. And if you think about it, like in terms of the information reaching the advertiser, so they can actually be super smart in the way how they buy leads or how they generate leads themselves, there's a lot of information today that gets lost because of intermediaries, but also because of the fact that within the channels, people are not sharing the data to the next channel. Think about how hard it is today for a lead buyer to know where a lead was generated. And it's actually pretty astounding if you think about it, that a lot of the leads that brands are buying today, they don't know where the user started their journey, and if that was a click on Google, Bing, or if it actually was a social ad. And it just changes the way so much on how to interact with the consumer as well, and how you can apply the messaging to what Matthew mentioned as well. Last year we did a fun report from our end, and 77% of the brands said that they believe there's way more data out there that will drastically impact the way how they can buy leads in a smarter and more efficient way. And that's a pretty crazy statistic, 77%, right?
Yeah.
So, and it goes, the simple things like actually making sure that all the information that's captured on the form is being passed to the advertiser, but also, traffic channels, sub IDs, everything that basically is collected on the way should be passed towards the advertiser. So all the data can be used for audience segmentation, as we now know Kohler is so focused on. Yeah. So with that, what we see is that the companies that are really smart in the space dictate that. They actually dictate to have access to that data and to automate and be able to make programmatic decisions on that data. The smartest companies actually share the data that they have and that they collect also back to the channels where the lead was generated on. So if I think about a Dolead, I know how critical it is for you guys to understand how well that lead performed and to get full insights in terms of performance. But it's not only performance, it's also about appending data that the brand or the advertiser might actually add on a particular lead and know they're closed. In order to be able to make really good audience segmentations, brands might ask, for example, for credit rating or other information that can be shared backwards on the top of the funnel in order to be able to target better. And all that data should be shared both ways. And today, often that's not the case. We take a very proactive approach to ensuring that it is actually being shared both ways and that data can be used for smarter decisions. But it's hard because there's many steps, as the funnel shows so clearly. There's many steps where that information gets lost along the way.
And I'd like to add a comment here. When we started, the operations when we started to expand in the U.S., I remember the very first conversations I had with prospects and clients, and they were all very surprised that I would require them to feed us with the leads disposition report with the data they create in their CRM out of the leads we send to them, just for optimization purpose. So that was very, very intriguing to me. And two, they were also very surprised that we would be a fully transparent firm, sharing on a lead per lead basis the URL, the timestamp, the source. This is a lead coming from Google, this is a lead coming from Facebook, etc. Leveraging sub IDs when available with our clients for them to be able to split the quality of the lead flow into and have the breakdown into different channels, different audience strategy and audience segment. And I was really surprised that in today in this market, this is still not something massively generalized with the market.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting to mention about that is that a lot of brands are used to buy through aggregators or agencies, and they expect the aggregators or agencies to do that task and to keep that in one big black box.
Yeah.
Companies like Dolead and want to be able to reach out and build that end-to-end attribution on both ends. And you cannot go fully programmatic at the end if you don't have access to the data all across all those different channels.
And that's why you need to go talk to your CTO about that data lake I was mentioning before. I think that's something so important. Maybe just before moving to Vish, there is a question on the chat, and I think Bas, maybe you could also answer that question. The question is, there seems to be so much fake people, fraud in the digital space, even more so with the pandemic. I found myself going back to direct mail, especially this year. Do you still expect growth in the digital space, and why? How can AI help? So I'd like to add two answers to that question. We don't know what industry we're talking about here. And of course, there's the answer might be very different from one industry to another. But one, yes, we expect the digital market to grow in 2020. As you know, with Dolead here in the US, we're growing 15% month over month in 2020, despite the pandemic. So we're doing good. I don't know, Bas, you want to share any comments about that, but we strongly believe that in a time of crisis, when an advertiser need to rationalize their budget, they're going to decrease their branded marketing budget and probably maintain or increase their ROI-oriented budgets. So this is actually good for digital lead generation. And then as far as, fake people, there's a lot of ways to filter out fake people, from a pure technical standpoint. And maybe Bas, you could add a comment about that.
Yeah, I think fraud happens a lot with through intermediaries. So to go back to the point on being as direct as possible and to have the tools in place to manage those direct sources as possible is critical in order to fight that. And there is fraud in our space, and there's fraud that needs to be weeded out by all companies, obviously involved. And the way to do that is to demand more transparency, both up and down the funnel. And I think that's critical, where clients that are buying leads in a particular space, like we really stimulate clients to not only, if they buy leads through PX, and they've not centralized all their lead buying through PX, but also if they buy with other sources to demand more transparency about that. And I think as an industry, that demanding is not happening yet enough, and that will weed out a lot of the bad guys, so to speak, in the space.
Yeah. And I would also add that, we can easily optimize a campaign to try to get rid of most of the fake leads. For sure, we'll always be generating, false personal information at some point, but we can optimize this looking at the contact rate, which is the first step of the funnel. If you cannot reach a consumer, then the lead is not very useful. So if you can actually increase the contact rate, it means that on the whole, you are decreasing the fake people, the scrub rate, which is good. All right, Vish, as an advertiser, as a brand, well-known brand like Kohler, the biggest challenge is to constantly optimize the marketing mix and spend budgets on sources that are providing the most value. How can AI and automation provide a model that learns and optimizes the marketing mix over time? What have you tried, and how do you see this?
Awesome question. Well, this really is can you guys hear me well again? Sorry. Well, awesome question. This really kind of drills back to the basic conundrum, the basic marketing conundrum, and what should be the marketing mix. I think somebody on the panel spoke about how much money should be spent in which various pockets. I think you had a lot on that, Arthur, about that those spreadsheets where you show a lead source, one lead source all the way through, and what really should a marketer be spending their money in. I think it boils down to a lot of boils down to a lot of things, but the main things are what's working with what's kind of working for you, what's not working for you, and really to understand what's working and what's not working. It's important to understand and kind of really pinpoint and very clearly define what your KPIs are. If really, really understand what your KPIs are. Is it a cost per acquisition of what? Is it cost per lead? If that's is it volume of leads? Is it volume of sales? Because again, you can work with the lead source one, but then they have a certain ceiling of a lead volume. So you really have to tap into other sources that might increase your lead cost, but then kind of gets you more volume. So really got to understand what your optimization points are. If you need more sales volume, do you need more revenue? Do you need more, but much better optimized cost per acquisition, much better cost per appointment? So yeah, there's really very various parameters and really define, kind of build a model around it and really kind of optimize around the key function point where we want to maximize or going to optimize, et cetera. I think that's going to be the key point. And I think in the end, I also want to say that I think Arthur, you also had that, again, pointed at lead source one, lead source two, they're your typical classical, lead source arbitrage spreadsheet. One thing that the marketers sometimes miss or maybe kind of have challenges in understanding is attribution of one source over other. So one certain media, spending can actually help your other media in a much better way. I mean, it's a pretty basic thing. I know we're talking digital here, but I mean, Kohler and any other, big company, and especially the audience we cater to, we spend, our portfolios are very diversified amongst, traditional, non-traditional, conventional, TV, print, digital, all that stuff. So it's an important thing to understand. How is one media kind of helping or hurting others? It's a pretty common thing. If you're on TV in a market, it kind of helps across all the channels. It kind of drives your demand up. It drives your, just drives the curiosity in general in the market. So really, I think attribution is attribution from one media to other. Cross-channel attribution is a super important thing to understand. And I don't think automation and AI have, again, reached that point where it's completely like, yes, bingo, you got that answer. Like, hey, this is my exact marketing mix. It's all about common sense. It's all about experience. It's a lot about data, kind of trying to get to the right point. And I really hope that AI finally gets us some solution. We have great folks in this panel here. So maybe Microsoft comes with a solution. I would hope it's going to help us, like marketers like us, like me, to find the right point. But I think using data, using power of data, using regression modeling, using attribution, cross-down attribution, using various. Again, I don't want to go deeper into what we do here, but yeah, we have done a lot, and I would say we feel confident on our approach, the way we have handled this. But yeah, I think there's a lot of scope for the new technologies to really solve this problem for a marketer like us. So yeah, I think that's where things can really get much better.
All right, great. Thank you, Vish. There is one last question. I think we have still 2 minutes on the clock. Maybe Geoffrey, you could answer that one. What is the best way to test how the medias are affecting the other?
I guess it's, the old-fashioned way. You can't compare unless you are doing a number of different things. I guess we call it A/B testing in our industry. So the simplest way is basically test something on one platform against another and see what performs the best. Do you get the most leads from that channel? Do they lead to quality? Do you get the most reach there? I think that's really what it comes down to. Again, which is why we, coming full circle on this conversation, which is what I hope AI will help us do. So we're not doing traditional A/B testing when we have this conversation 3 years from now.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me on stage today. I'm very happy for the result of that session. I hope you enjoyed it. And any question, you can very easily shoot us an email. And thank you very much. And talk to you soon. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone. Great job, Arthur.
Thank you. Thank you, Bas.